Coming today on Government Matters, exclusive coverage from San Diego, California at one of the biggest military conferences in the country, West 2018. We bring you an exclusive one-on-one interview with Patrick Shanahan, the Deputy Secretary of Defense. What message he wants to send to the defense community.
It's fun being here.
Plus, on the day milCloud 2.0 goes live, I sat down with the DISA official in charge of running that operation.
So they're live, ready to go on the NIPRNet.
Government Matters gets a glimpse into how DISA delivered ahead of schedule. All that and more coming up on Government Matters.
This is a special edition of Government Matters Defense with Francis Rose from West 2018 in San Diego. Brought to you by Dell Technologies.
Thanks for watching the weekend edition of Government Matters, the only show covering the latest news, trends, and topics that matter to the business of government. Aboard the USS Portland in San Diego, California, I'm your host, Francis Rose. Today, part one of our coverage from the AFCEA International and U.S. Naval Institute West 2018 conference. First, my exclusive one-on-one interview with Deputy Secretary of Defense Patrick Shanahan. His message to West attendees was, the Pentagon has a strategy, but more important, it's taking action.
We have been very disciplined in this approach to managing the Pentagon. So the strategy, what was so important about the strategy, and this is all about how do we get to action, is that if we didn't make clear the priorities of the department and then resource to that, that's the real discipline to this. The strategy is, I think, a good work product, but it was something done in a compressed time frame. The budget means we're actually going to go do those things. And now that we've said we've got the budget built, put the leadership, read accountability, and the performance expectation into place. That's the part of the action that we're really focused on here in the near term. It's not about planning. Planning is important, but it's more, are we taking action?
Strategically, this has been a challenge for the Defense Department, at least since Secretary Rumsfeld started to reorganize the Pentagon in his vision in the early 2000s, and then war came. How do you expect to continue to do that, to do that reshaping, to do the reorg, to do the things that you're doing at the OSD level, DCMO to CMO, splitting ATL and so on the same track as you're trying to do acquisition reform, and we're still fighting the wars?
I think what's really great about this job is that I did this for 30 years already. So working at Boeing was like spring training. And we're now, to the big game. And I feel that the preparation and the real understanding about how organizations work, a big component of this is social science. It's how do you motivate people, how do you create the collaboration, having a feel for the time constant, how fast can you go, how much concurrency can you have, how do you create momentum. So what you won't see in these documents is all of the magic that goes into that. So I feel as though the first few months have been getting the basics into place, but in parallel we've been getting the right people and then giving them the clear sets of priorities. This whole thing on setting priorities is the most important thing we can do. Because in a large institution, people complain about these bureaucracies. They work. You think about $600–700 billion being spent, you need some type of control. My job has really been more focused on how do I make the system work. The system, that's the thing that I've probably been most encouraged about. The system can work. This is about people. And so my time has been spent on setting those priorities and then building teams and then getting engagement.
What's the most difficult part of the change management landscape that you've looked at so far?
Difficult in terms of degree of complexity or implementation, or difficult in...
Any of those, your
Yeah,
choice.
no, the thing I'm most excited about, which is the hardest problem, is the modernization. It is like the best, but it is difficult in a good way of solving a really hard problem. I always liken it to taking easy classes or really hard classes, or taking on a hard assignment. It is really a hard assignment. The the business reforms themselves, most large companies did those 10 years ago. From a risk standpoint, low risk. Our challenge is not how to go do those, it's around governance and equities and who's responsible. So I see that as large. Mm-hmm. It's not something you just wave your hand and that happens automatically, and then we have a lot of oversight. So that one, we have the patience and the endurance, but the creating the lethality, integrating the industrial base, changing the professional military education, all of those things, to me, it's like, that's the over-the-top part of this job.
So I want to pick out two themes there that you just mentioned. One is modernization and one is lethality. Right. And I want to connect those to the nuclear posture review that's just out.
Sure.
What's the intersection, the nexus of all three of those items, Mr. Secretary?
Well, so I would decompose it this way.
Okay.
Lethality has two major elements. So you have readiness. Just improving your readiness makes you more lethal. And then you have this modernization piece that says against evolving threats or new threats or desired capabilities, you have to change your effects. And then you have within that the nuclear posture review. The triad becomes obsolete. We're basically literally modernizing it. So to me, when it comes to risk, challenge, technology, low risk, that is one more of execution than technology. When I think of the real modernization efforts we have to undertake in terms of whether it's equipment, networks, space, autonomy, that's a whole new domain. I mean, that's where the magic will happen.
The resources that are required there, you talked about resources and aligning resources to strategy earlier. It's going to be a heavy lift resource-wise to fulfill the vision of that nuclear posture review, right?
I don't think so. I think when you look at the numbers, they're in like the 4 or 5%. I mean, they're not. They're big numbers. Anything that has a T in it is a big number relative to the deterrent effect. It's hard to assign a value to that because it's invaluable. We're very sensitive to anything with a T on it. I mean, I'd prefer to have it have a B, but they are big numbers. They're important, resources for the country.
Part 2 of our exclusive interview with Deputy Secretary of Defense Patrick Shanahan. Straight ahead on Government Matters, I'll shift focus to DoD's relationship with industry and how Secretary Shanahan's leveraging his private sector experience to make the Pentagon buy smarter. For years, buying faster has been a priority for the Pentagon, but under this new administration, Deputy Secretary Shanahan says being smarter buyers will really come into focus. In his keynote address at West 2018, Shanahan said he wants the Pentagon to send clear signals to industry about where it wants to invest.
It's fun being here in this venue. It brings back a lot of memories in the sense of, for forums like this, where we would bring our hardware and our people, we worked so hard just to be able to build relationships and give people a sense of, where we were spending money or ideas that we had. So to me, it's how do I improve the education on the DoD side? I mean, we have to be smarter buyers. And I want to get past being a smarter buyer to the collaboration we need is that we can create something none of us ever thought about when we're together. Mm-hmm. And I learned this early on in my career at Boeing, and these, some of these things, they just stick with you. When we put in place these cross-functional teams, and you hear everybody talk about these all the time, but when you actually practice them properly, you get a mix of the right smart people, you create something magical. That's what we have to be able to do. We have an industry that is enormously resourceful. We're not all in the same room, and then when we do, the translation gets garbled. I'm not going to blame any of that on I mean, we could always streamline our rules and procedures in the FAR. That's not our issue. I think part of it is us being clear on the priorities. The partnership, though, I do want that we need to strengthen is in this area of performance. How is it we get better performance? And in a way that is not me all the time pushing to make it better. And I'll give you an example. And we talk about this thing called cost. If you bought something and someone you were buying it from came back to you and said, if you do these 3 things, I can lower the cost. And somebody who was like constantly having that dialogue with you, you'd probably do more business with them. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, you know, I'll take the responsibility for that. It's not at the level that we need. And there's history there, you know, but to me that's history. In the commercial world where I came from, we'd get up every single day. I mean, this is no joke. Every single day and try to figure out, how can I be more productive? It isn't like, how do I save 10 cents, or it's, how do I be more productive? Because when you solve the productivity problem, you solve the cost problem. We tend to talk about cost all the time. That partnership where we're having those conversations, if you do this, I can do this. And
how do you tie smarter buying, as you mentioned a moment ago, to the faster buying that the Pentagon would like to do, as Secretary Lord has talked about, as each of the branches are trying to accelerate acquisitions?
I can't even separate the two. In my mind, they go together. You know, we have all these different descriptions of different programs and means to go about that, but the two go hand in hand. One of the things I learned, I'll go back to why I'm so excited to be in this job. When I went back to graduate school at a time when the Japanese looked like they were going to take over manufacturing in the United States. So I went back to graduate school so we could be part of the group that, you know, restored America's competitiveness in manufacturing. The same goes here. The competitiveness that we can achieve, and this is what I learned from the Japanese, it's all about speed. The faster you can go, the better the quality. The faster that you can go, the less money you're going to spend. We have been taking a lot of the techniques that the Japanese use to drive continuous improvement and are integrating them into the Pentagon. It sounds kind of funny, like why would you do that? Why do you think that manufacturing techniques used in Japan have a place in the Pentagon? When you peel it back, Japanese are so clever about employee engagement. It's all really about how do they get more employee engagement and create a system where they can change it. So we've constructed this room called the Obeya room. And this Obeya room is a place where, let's say you were new and you wanted to understand the improvement plan for this massive organization called the Pentagon. The visualization techniques that are created through this Obeya process allow you to walk in and say, oh, look at all these dots that I connect. I understand what I can go do to contribute to the overall effectiveness of the Pentagon. And today, when you live in these big, huge stovepipes, it's difficult to come up with those things.
Straight ahead on Government Matters, we talk milCloud 2.0 with DISA's Cloud Chief John Hale. What's next for that program now that it's live? You're watching our special coverage from the West 2018 conference in San Diego. Stay with us. I'm Francis Rose on board the USS Portland in San Diego, California. 6 months ago, the Defense Information Systems Agency awarded its milCloud 2.0 contract. The vendor, CSRA, and DISA just reached their delivery goal ahead of schedule. Provisional authorization came on February 5th, making milCloud 2.0 fully operational. I sat down with John Hale, Chief of the Cloud Portfolio Office at DISA, just hours after milCloud 2.0 went live.
So milCloud 2.0 was awarded in June of last year, in June of 2017. The expectation was when we did the award, the contract said the contractor had 9 months to deliver the milCloud 2 capability, which is on-prem commercial cloud. We've sped that up, and actually the vendor received their provisional authorization this morning, so February 5th, and so they're live, ready to go on the NIPRNet, so they're able to take mission partners on to the capability today.
What are the components of speeding that up? Speeding acquisition is what everybody in the Defense Department's trying to do. What was your secret?
So so from the time the contract was awarded, we knew that the interest and the demand signal was much higher than what we originally anticipated. So we formed a team that was both several IPTs that were a combination of the commercial cloud provider, the government, our finance people, our security people, all together to make sure that we could accelerate all of the steps that still had to happen, but we just accelerated them all as quickly as possible.
So what it sounds like you did differently than what normally happens is you had all the stakeholders together. Because I'm not sure I hear many times when the CFO shop, the financial management team is involved in this process.
No. So our financial management team, our legal team, our networking team, our in-house data team, they were all working together from day one. As soon as the contract got past the protest period, we started those combined IPTs, and that was really the key to getting it to live before it was supposed to. So
you've called 2018 a year of planning in this area. Tell me what you're planning for, and then talk about moving toward 2019, which you've called kind of the year of execution.
So unfortunately, in the Department of Defense, the acquisition cycle is what it is, right? So we still buy IT and everything else as if it was a weapon system. So as we've deployed all of these various cloud capabilities to the department, whether it be off-prem commercial cloud or on-prem commercial cloud, all of the options are now available. And this is really the point, when I say it's a planning, this is the point where now DoD mission partners can then look at all the options and actually figure out where they want to go, how they want to leverage cloud to get to their mission needs, and to start to plan out their financial requirements. And so they're going to start to put wedges in the palm for moving all their applications to the cloud. And so those will go in place this year. Hopefully all the resources and money gets allocated early next fiscal year, and we can actually start the execution phase. There will be some early adopters this year that want to go, and they've got the money allocated. But I think broad across the department, you're going to start to see a lot of planning now from a financial perspective to make sure they have the resources and the people available to make those moves. Were there lessons that you learned from the first iteration of milCloud that apply to both the planning and execution stages that you just talked about? So the easiest thing to say is that we underplanned. So we deployed the original milCloud 1 solution in 2013, and we've expanded it 3 times since then. So the demand signal was far greater than what we had anticipated. And so we used that as the basis for the new contract vehicle for milCloud 2.0. And that's kind of what set the ceiling limits that are in the milCloud 2 vehicle, where it's lessons learned from having to expand the prior system multiple times to meet demand. You've mentioned a couple of times already in our conversation that demand is very high. What is driving that demand? Is it the end users understanding the benefits of the cloud, or is it just an overall push where people are hearing cloud, 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 and they're going, oh, I guess we should do this, and they're kind of being dragged to cloud as a solution? I think it's a little bit of everything. 5 years ago when we talked about cloud, the whole kind of basis for cloud was cost. Right? Everybody was like, I'm going to go to the cloud because I'm going to save money. And that's not really part of the conversation anymore. I think at the end of the day, we all want to save money. We want to save the taxpayers' dollars. But when we start talking about cloud, the conversation goes towards elasticity, agility, and lethality. And those are the key words that we keep using when we talk about cloud, is having solutions that are elastic, that allow us to be more agile, that allow the warfighter to be more agile in the IT space, and ultimately at the end of the day, for them to be more lethal in the IT battle space. When organizations come to you and ask you for your help in all of these areas, what are the biggest barriers that you run into? Are there some that are consistent, that are holdups, things they have to overcome before you're able to help them? So the biggest hurdle that most agencies and COCOMs and services face is app rationalization, right? So taking a look at all of the applications they have today, and that hard look of saying which ones are actually needed which ones are critical to my mission, which ones need to be modernized in order to take advantage of the new capabilities that are out there, and which ones need to go away. And that's the hard battle, because when you start talking about applications going away, deprecating existing capabilities that are out there, you're talking about programs that involve people and money, and you start getting into another side of things.
You're calling somebody's baby ugly in that position.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you know, the use case that we like to use is U.S. Transcom. You know, from their director down, from the commander down. You know, he set a path and said, all of our applications will move to the cloud by this date, and if they don't, I'm going to turn it off. And it takes that level, that 4-star down commitment, to make rapid modifications like that. So,
Don't forget, if you miss an episode of Government Matters, you can find it on our website, govmatters.tv. I'm back in 2 minutes.
Government Matters is brought to you by Battelle, solving what matters most in national security, healthcare, energy, and the environment. Because at Battelle, it can be done.
That's the latest from San Diego, California, as we cover the West 2018 conference. Join me weeknights at 8 and 11 on News Channel 8 and next Sunday morning at 10:30 on ABC 7 to stay plugged in on the issues that matter for the business of government. For part 2 of our coverage from West 2018, tune in Wednesday night featuring my conversations with Admiral Scott Swift, Commander of U.S. Pacific Fleet, Captain John Watkins, Commanding Officer of the Naval Information Warfighting Development Center, and Colonel Greg Griffin of DISA's JRSS Program Management Office. Thanks for watching. On board the USS Portland, I'm Francis Rose.